Okay, we're going to head not to Brookline, Massachusetts, but we're going to head now to the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia. Is that where we are, Madeline, today?
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's
Look,
0 degrees centigrade, freezing.
What is it? Is it 0 degrees centigrade?
Yeah, which means it's 32 degrees.
That
which
is true.
has been warm. It is warm, actually, compared to what it has been.
Well, it's cold for me, given that I'm in Sydney and it's summertime, but although it is cool. But let me do the intro for you so everyone knows who you are, and then we can kind of dive in a little bit, because I've known Madeline now for, I don't know, quite a few months, it feels like. She's a psychologist with years of experience working with teens from inner city schools and outlying rural areas, as well as white suburban areas. In all these settings, I've never heard it quite called that. In all these settings, her clients showed the same basic needs, listen carefully, for honest communication and respect for their autonomy. She's now written 2 books that address them directly, since they are the experts on themselves. Her book, I Want to Be Me, But I Don't Know Who I Am. I love that title. It sounds just like the story of my life. And her soon to be published, I Want to Be Me workbook. Madeline coaches her readers to greater awareness, autonomy, independence, and resilience. And I got to tell you, from what I've discovered about teens these days, that is so critical, because the teen suicide rate is up 8.7 times what it was in the past. So a woman that is basically here to save lives, the incredible, amazing Madeline Boskovitz. Yay.
Thank you, Ken. Oh, good. I don't know if I can live up to this introduction. And Joe,
well, hell, you wrote it, so for God's sakes, you better.
And Joe, I am thrilled to be meeting you, not quite in person, but.
Yeah, no, it's awesome to meet you. Yeah.
So this is and I want to, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just replying to your comment. I think there's a little bit of delay. No, yeah, it's awesome to meet you. I can't wait to hear what you get to talk about. I mean, the title of the book is already has caught my eye. So yeah, nice to meet you.
Thank you, Joe. So this is very exciting. Thank you, Ken, for this opportunity to talk, Mr. Quell,
oh no,
to an international audience. And while my experience is entirely American, and I'm addressing American children and teens and young adults, I think human development is pretty much the same despite cultural differences. And I want to start by apologizing, because I am actually going to be using the script, and I'm going to do what our previous speaker said not to do. But I still be on camera for you.
Yeah, hang on a second. Let me make you a co-host so that you can share your screen. And
did you want me to do that? I was just going to be looking at the camera. And
whichever you want. I thought I was multitasking, so for some reason I thought you wanted to share your screen. So no, go ahead.
No, I think it might be better this way. So.
Okay.
I'm going to do exactly what he said not to do, but I'm a psychologist and a teacher, and it's hard to get away from that model. So the title of my talk today is not I Want to Be Me, but I Don't Know Who I Am, though that's coming up soon. But it is the 5 essential skills that schools do not teach. So let me start by saying that is not a criticism. It is a comment, and it needs to be understood what the issue is. So historically, children were expected to have the emotional and social development when they reached school age, and so that they could function in the classroom. And I think by and large, it was happening certainly in America. But for some reasons, or many reasons, it's not happening for many children and teens nowadays. So schools have tried to adjust. Elementary schools now, some of them are offering children some quiet space to engage in mindfulness meditation, to be in touch with their own feelings and to calm down, and I think that's a plus. In high schools, though, teens are really assumed to be ready to learn the material. There is a hurry to get it done, and any teen that shows a lack of ability to do that, a lack of presence, is often excluded, punished, isolated, and often shamed, unfortunately. So let's reflect on that this is the week of love, and let's send love to the schools and the dedicated staff that work so hard to teach our children. And let's not forget the teens that we live with or work with every day. They are certainly in need of love, the difficult ones in particular. So let's give them the skills also to love themselves. And this is what my book is about, and why I address them directly, is that it's important for them to get the wherewithal to be persons that they love. So I'm in the process of creating an educational program where I have the guidebook and the workbook that will be published this spring. And I am working actually on a web course to teach the book in the classroom, hopefully as part of a curriculum in health education. So let's just look at what we expect of our children between the age of 10 and 20. I've stretched it a little bit just to cover a whole decade. And because it's a decade of incredible transformation as they grow from dependent children to independent adults, able to function in the world as an adult. And this is an enormous challenge for them, and many, many teens are very much challenged. And yet, so it is really not fair that they get a bad rap. So let's look at the 5 essential skills that teens need to learn, to practice, and to mature in order to have a successful life. And I want to point out that we start practicing those skills in adolescence, but it often takes a lifetime to accomplish them. So wait and see what I'm talking about. So the first one is self-awareness, which also promotes good overall self-care, and I will go into detail later. The second one is the challenging emotional regulation, acceptance and management of our feelings, not denying them or repressing them, but accepting and managing. The third one, effective behavior management, the one that so many of us have so much trouble with, and I will go into some detail as to why. Then good pro-social skills are needed to enable us to have a productive and pleasant life, and to be able to love, as our previous speaker talked about. When we love ourselves, we're able to love. Finally, the ability to make insightful decisions, considering consequences and potential outcomes. So all of this, of course, is covered in my books, and I will go into a little more detail, or a lot more detail. So how do we promote this good self-awareness that fosters self-care, autonomy, which means taking charge of ourselves, responsibility, independence, pro-social behavior, and solid decision-making? Is that all we're expecting of these poor adolescents? Well, it is, as much as possible. So as we make them more aware of themselves on the inside and the outside, they learn to focus on their traits and behaviors, to see who they are and how they present to others. They also uncover their strengths and weaknesses, and ultimately realize that they can choose the identity that they want to project in the world. They can choose to improve on their qualities and to manage their behaviors. So this is extremely empowering, and it empowers them ultimately to acknowledge their dreams, which they have often been hiding from themselves, as they don't quite believe in themselves. So this awareness also encourages them to trust their own gut feelings, their inner voice, helps them to acknowledge what they need, and then engage them in becoming what I call their own good parent, because this is all our job, is to learn to leave our parents' authority and establish our own direction as we grow into the teen years, and become, therefore, our own good parent, because we want actually a kind parent, and one that will foster healthy, what we call self-talk, how we talk to ourselves. Again, the previous speaker mentioned how we need to talk to ourselves kindly. And so they learn to reject the negative comments that they often hear. Oh, you will never amount to anything, and you just can't do it, and you're expecting too much, and who do you think you are? All of these, they become aware that these are not necessary, and they don't have to espouse them. So as they recognize when they're being treated well or not, and this is essential for getting along in the world, to know how to be treated. So I'm going to use here an example that was created with a client, not a teen client, but an adult client who was a new high school teacher and who had a very, very difficult class in which she could not get the teens to settle down or to do any work or to even pay any attention to what she was doing. And she was very distressed. So I gave her a copy of my book. I'm not allowed to sell it to patients, so I give it to them. So what did she do? She had the genius idea, after reading my book and understanding some of the teens' needs, she had the genius idea of inviting them every single class to take the first 5 minutes and write down privately what is on their mind, what they would like for themselves, where they're at, and whatever else they wanted to write. And when they were done with those 5 minutes, they were on task. They were able to participate in the class and to listen. And the question is why? Why did this help? Or how did it help? So she offered them respect. She acknowledged their status as being anxious and agitated and angry. She acknowledged their need for some way to become able to listen and study. So she helped them become more aware of themselves, take stock of themselves and their status, and center themselves. It can be as simple as that in the classroom. So let's get on to the next piece, which is emotional regulation. That's what we call it. That's the jargon. And it's helping teens recognize and accept their emotions without judging themselves. Emotions are healthy responses to what we experience. There is nothing wrong with them. And we don't control them. We cannot control them. Even though every client comes into therapy says, I want to learn to control my emotions. And I say, well, no, you can't control emotions. You can control your behavior. And that's a difference. And that will be the next piece. But right now, we're helping teens learn how to manage and regulate strong emotions so as to be able to choose their behavior. So I need actually to move back in time to a much earlier period of development, because emotional regulation really starts during the terrible twos. That's what we call them in America, when the little child becomes a little bit autonomous and wants to have his way and comes upon frustrations. And we're not used to them opposing us, and that's why we call them the terrible twos. But it is a very exciting time for the child. And what does he do when he has to struggle with a frustration? Very often, he, for lack of any ability to do anything else, he throws a temper tantrum. He feels the emotion in his body and sort of loses control of his body in struggling with the frustration, and we call that a temper tantrum. The best way to help the child who throws a temper tantrum is to let him or her recover by themselves. Not interfere with it, not shame, not punish, not yell, not prevent. So as the child recovers, he engages often in what we call self-soothing, taking care of his hurt. He might go and grab a blanket. She might be sucking her thumb and picking up her teddy bear, whatever it is. They find a way to take care of themselves, as long as you don't remove that frustration. It's very important. So punishment teaches the child to disregard feelings, and giving into the tantrum is the worst thing you can do, because it teaches the child that manipulation is the way to get things done, And it also, it's just not right. And I have to say that in my practice now, I'm retired now, by the way, Ken. But in my practice, I often saw older children who were still allowed to throw temper tantrums at 10 years of age, 11 years of age. So I had a young boy who was 11 and who actually threw a temper tantrum in Walmart. And his mother was very angry with him as she brought him into the session. And we talked about it, and I first clearly set limits that, it's been okay until now to have a temper tantrum when you're frustrated, but, after next Monday, that's no longer acceptable. So you're just at the limit now. You can still do till Monday, but not after next Monday. So, and when you're frustrated, what do? You take care of yourself. Do you go read a book, listen to music, dance, punch a ball? What do you do? Whatever it is, that's good. And what if you wanted that poster so badly? How could you go about getting it? What could you do? Let's use that anger for you to figure out what you could do. So we talked that maybe he could offer to do some work to earn the money. Maybe he could go talk to neighbors and help them out to earn money. Whatever it was, he could then come up with the money and autonomy, because he would then be on his own to purchase that poster, in the sense that it would have been his own doing, his own autonomy, rather than depending on his mother. So let's move on to the really tough one, and that's the middle one of the 5 pieces, and that's behavior management. So this is about helping teens to use the energy from their emotion, exactly, to choose to resist an impulsive reaction, like throwing a temper tantrum, in favor of choosing a response that takes into account their goals, small and large, considers their needs and the path they really want to take. So this boy really wanted that poster, but he didn't have any resources on how to get it besides throwing a temper tantrum. So it was, of course, high time for him to learn that he did indeed have resources and that he could take advantage of them. So it's also important to acknowledge that for all of us, this is the biggest challenge, but also the biggest boon when we master it. But it takes a lifetime. People who are successful are those who keep their cool and choose their behavior. Think about our current vice president, who was described as unflappable, a great compliment to her when she was a senator. So how do you do that? How do you get that across? Of course, in my books, there are all kinds of exercises that train the teens to learn those skills, but I'm just going to use the old days example long before computers and other modern items. We were told to count to 10. Why? Well, take a moment to regroup. It's still the best advice that allows a person to listen to their gut and consider choices and personal goals. And here's an example here, which seems to have disappeared. No, it's right here.
I forgot about counting to 10.
Sorry.
I totally forgot about counting to 10. And in fact, I was told, I have a friend of mine who I've been working with for years as a coach. And I had to make an agreement that I wouldn't do anything impulsive business-wise, not till I counted to 10, but for 5 days. And I had a 5-day cooling off period. And if the idea was still good after 5 days, we would do it. Yeah, and I haven't exactly followed that, but it's a really good idea.
5 days is good. I had a 3-day example that I may go in if we have more time later, where I took 3 days to cool off and then get the situation straightened
Well,
out. So,
it's funny you're bringing me back to a memory when I was in my first relationship way back when I was 23 years old, I think it was. And I said, like, so here's the deal. It's going to be like a rental agreement. You have to give 30 days notice. And so we have a fight because at that time everyone was breaking up, like, have a fight, break up, have a fight, break up. And I was like, I don't want that. I want something stable. So I said, okay, so here's the deal. We have a fight. You want out, you give me 30 days notice. And so every now and then we would give each other 30 days notice. And of course, the next morning it was like we retracted it. But at least we had that ability that, okay, we were able to say it and then get through it. So you make a really good point about that cooling off period.
So that is a wonderful example. And if I may use it sometime in the future.
You can even do it with that attribution. It's fine.
Oh, well, no. Okay, thank you. But I would certainly refer to you as my teacher. So I'm going to use an example here of a young man that I named Jason and who appears in the book as an example. And I was going to read it, but time is of the essence, and so I'm not going to read it. But it was going to give you an example of the way I write very down to earth and directly with the youth, because these books are addressed to them directly.
Nice.
And,
we have about 6 minutes, if that, or 6 or 7 minutes. So if that works for you, then feel free.
I thought I had about 8 minutes.
You do, but I was just trying to pad it.
Thank you. So Jason, this was in a shelter for teenagers who had either run away from home or been brought in by their parents, and they were all under the aegis of the Children's Protective Services, where I was volunteering as a counselor. And so Jason was 17 years old, and he came in very angry and agitated, and I invited him, not told him, not asked him, but invited him to sit down with me and maybe be able to let me know what was going on. His girlfriend was so I found out his girlfriend was in the hospital, but they wouldn't let him talk to her. He had called twice, and they said no, that was impossible, and he had been so furious that he slammed the phone down and was crying, and he didn't know how to deal with it. And so I let him, take his time to settle down and narrate it. And I said, well, maybe there is a way that you still could get to talk to her, since you clearly care so much about her. And how could you go about it instead of being kind of rude and informal? Maybe you could sound, more quiet, use a quiet voice and introduce yourself and make the request using her full name and sound, almost like an adult. I didn't say that, of course, but maybe that would really help. So he actually sat with me, a total stranger, and was willing to talk to me about this and then rehearse it with me. We did phone call, and in the days when we put our phone to the ear. Anyway, and he went and called on one of the available phones and in the shelter and succeeded. First time around, he succeeded. So we talked about the value of the energy from the anger, and also, and not with him, but with the readers, I talk about the value of anger. So emotions give us a lot of energy, but we can use it to make good choices. We can use it to reach our goals rather than just express our frustration. And this is something that a school counselor could certainly engage a distressed student as well, and I suspect that they do. So the next important thing are the pro-social, what I call pro-social skills, and this sort of come automatically as teens become more self-aware and empowered to be taking charge of themselves. They learn to respect themselves and others, to provide and demand sincere connection, to demand respect, avoid manipulation or intimidation, peer pressure, or even bullying. And at the same time, they learn to refrain from doing the same. So and they learn to attend to their own needs, to stay on track and avoid being distracted from the goal. So this is what Jason was learning, to practice those skills, to keep the goal in mind and to work on the skills necessary to achieve that goal, to being polite and patient. And optimally, eventually to treat himself with respect, because he was entitled to talk to his girlfriend. He just needed to believe that he was. So the last piece of the 5 pieces is insightful decision making. And now, some of you may be laughing, and it takes forever for all of us to learn how to make sound decisions that use critical thinking and self-knowledge. In the book, I actually use, believe it or not, what I call yes-no decision trees, where you have a decision to make, you have a yes path and you have a no path. And if all works out, the yes path leads to yes, I can do it. But everywhere you get a choice to yes or no. And it looks like a tree. I use it horizontally with big labels. And I think it works. I also have demonstrate one for a decision I had to make, which I also put on YouTube as a verbal demonstration. So these are the 5 skills that promote self-confidence, allows teams to believe in themselves and their dreams, feel empowered to pursue them, and become resilient in the face of obstacles and challenges. So I am going to show you the book. I'm coming back here. I am going to show you not only the title. By the way, this is what one of my young patients said. I want to be me, but I don't know who I am. And she gave me permission to use the title. I think she forgot.
Her eyes are amazing. Her eyes are amazing. Wow.
So this is not the student, of course. This is a stock photo. My artist is my son, Mark Sawaya. He gets credit at the end of the book and on the back cover. And so that's a guidebook, which is already out on Amazon. This is a prototype of the workbook, where the same girl is in the middle, but now she's got a whole bunch of friends that she's working with. And it's I Want to Be Me workbook. And to give you guys a taste of what this is like, what the books are like, my free gift to you is an I Want to Be Me introduction to the guidebook. And let's see if I can show that, to the guidebook and workbook. It's free if you go to my website, well, not my website, the book's website. And it's got about 80 pages. It has a lot of the instruments, introductory material. It's got the code to get more instruments online, to have access to more instruments online. And it has a sample chapter from each book, so you can see how I go about doing this teaching. And it has very detailed tables of contents so that you can see just what I cover very methodically. Is it okay, Ken, if I give the website?
Well, what we can, but I'll make it easy for everybody. We should have a link on the dashboard so people can just go right to our World of Week dashboard. They can download it immediately. Because typically you can feel free and deliver it now if you like, but just so all of you know, the link for that will be on the dashboard, so you don't have to worry about it. Go ahead.
Yes, I saw it actually. It looked very good. So if you look at what I put after my name, I put I Want to Be Me. So it's I Want to Be Me without an exclamation point. I Want to Be Me .org.
Oh, cool. That's a great name.
It's an easy one.
It is an easy one.
Yeah, go and you sign for my email list and you get the free book.
Fantastic.
It's a download that you can get immediately.
Fantastic.
And it will be there either forever or until like my previous speaker said, either forever or until the next gift comes along.
There you go. Exactly. Beautiful. Madeline, I am so honored to have you with us today. You are a gem, and we've got to land this plane right this minute because the next broadcast is starting like right now.
Okay.
I love you to pieces. Take care. Happy Valentine's Day. Happy World Love Week. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Joe.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.